with the story, in fact. Cold weather has already begun hitting parts of the country ahead of this year's winter season. With much of the country battling the COVID-19 pandemic, medical experts are warning that infections could in fact increase in winter when we generally also have to fence off the flu season, for instance. So for more on how to protect your immune system during the pandemic, especially in winter, we're joined once again by a medical practitioner, Dr. Dave Kaplan. Dr. Kaplan, thanks very much for your time. Once again, welcome to the AM report. I mean, like I said, just waking up this morning, one could already tell that something is different. It might be a bit difficult to imagine that this could possibly get worse.
Yeah, it's certainly getting to the sharp end of the knife now. And the cold weather is affecting our body's ability to deal with the virus. The actual virus is easier also to replicate in our noses. And we get runny noses from the cold. So there's been a long time since we had any rain. And we kind of indoors, it's cold. And we know our immune systems are less active when it is colder. So what we're going to do is you could start to think, well, can we still do something? Oh, we so can, right? We've got to maintain the mask hygiene. As I said last week, it's so important still to keep the mask on. The hand washing with soap, that we can never ever underestimate, and do it all the time, even in the house, because every time you think you might go out and you come back into your home, you've got to put on the soap. The distancing still applies, maybe even some hot drinks, because that will bring humidity to your nose and to your nasopharynx, which is where the COVID virus will start its journey. And also, if you can, try to get outdoors. And if you can't get outdoors, if possible, try and get a little bit of vitamin D into your body. We all know about vitamin C and zinc, but vitamin D is very, very important too, so that our immune systems can work efficiently.
I imagine a whole lot more people would have thought that the wise thing to do is actually to stay indoors. I mean, what kind of outdoor activities should one be doing when A, we're trying to fence off the pandemic, but B, I imagine trying to stay warm as we enter the winter season?
Sure, it's important, but you must always remember, and I always come back to, COVID seems to spare the young children and young adults. So, and why is it why is it so like that, right? Because young children, they play outdoors, they play soccer, they expand their lungs. They're constantly getting vitamin D from the sun. Think of a professional male or female soccer player. Every day they're training, they're fit, they're never overweight, they don't have diabetes. Young children play, they love it, they expand their lungs, they do it regularly, and they don't worry. Now we come to us who are not exercising as much as before because we've got to play the grown-up game, we've got to go to work, etc. And kids got to go to school too. But we're not exercising like we should. We're not expanding our lungs like we should. We're not outdoors getting the daily vitamin C that we do. So we got to redevelop our tendencies to play and not focus on the fear that we got. We've got to get outdoors a little bit, even though it's cold. So put on some clothing so that you can be warm. And you've got to train a little bit. And if you can't train outdoors, train indoors. And you can do some daily stretching exercises. You must connect to your exercise. You must start to breathe properly, and you must connect the exercises and the breathing to your mind. So while you're exercising, you're not going to be worrying about other things. You're just going to be doing some simple exercises. Even our old folk do daily breathing exercises. So now you say, Doc, what are you telling us how to breathe? We know how to breathe. We're born breathing. No. Breathing, I'm telling you telling South Africa that we must do. It's like a car that runs out of petrol. And when you've run out of petrol, you wish you had another Coca-Cola bottle full of petrol so you can get to the nearest stop. The same thing with our lungs. When our lungs get down to a certain critical size, we need about 500 mils minimum to breathe. And when our lungs are below 500 mils, we start to take huge strain, and then we start thinking about going on to ventilators. So we've got to do exercises to expand our lungs all the time. And the internet is full of people who have been showing us how to breathe. But if none of you have seen that, I'm going to tell you how to do it again. You've got to take deep breathing exercises and hold the breath for 5 seconds and breathe out. So if you're doing an exercise like some yoga, or you're doing some Qigong, the Chinese wonder exercise spelled Qigong, to stretch your joints and ligaments in the morning, they're all connected to breathing. So as we breathe in, we expand our lungs, we feel our stomachs going out at the bottom, and we breathe out, we squeeze in our stomachs, and we breathe out. And we do that 4 or 5 times, and on the last time, we get a pillow, and we into the pillow, we just go, you cough hard into the pillow. Now that increases the positive end expiratory pressure to open up your smallest, tiniest airways to keep your lungs as big as they need to be, because when the virus is coming for us, as long as we've got some big lungs, it's not really going to catch us, and hopefully we will be able to not need any ventilators, maybe just get a little bit of oxygen support if we are unlucky to go to hospital. So we need our lungs to have as much as reserve as possible. It's very, very important.
So breathing is one of the, I guess, daily activities we do that perhaps we're doing quite wrong. I imagine, also getting dressed and keeping warm could do with a few alterations. What should we keep in mind as, I guess, many people prepare to add on layers during the winter season? I mean, are we doing that kind of thing correctly?
Yes, the very important thing is when you are cold, your body's got to generate energy to keep warm. And the more it generates energy to keep warm, the more you dehydrate your body. So fluids are terribly important to keep drinking. And if you can put on layers of clothing to prevent your body's core temperature from going cold, you're going to retain your hydration better. The other thing, so you'll say, but now you put on a whole lot of layers, so you might be more sweaty. But if you're outdoors and you've got layers on, you're not going to be sweating because it's cold outside, but you'll retain your fluids. If you dehydrate with COVID, your mouth will dry out, and that is a perfect environment for COVID to get control over us. So it's important to keep warm with your layers, as you've said.
So, Dr. Kaplan, the issue around smoking has also taken a lot of, I guess, attention over the past few days. I do wonder what you're thinking as we enter into the winter season about ways through which that might affect one's ability to stave off the cold, if it does, and, of course, the virus too.
Could you just repeat that question? I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I was just asking about smoking in relation to staying warm. The idea, for instance, that smoking might have a bearing on contracting the virus is one we've debated for quite some time. Do you think it has a bearing on how we'll be able to stave off the chills this winter season?
I don't think smoking is a good idea ever. And smoking affects your mucociliary transport system. That's the little escalator system in our lungs that take phlegm and inflammatory cells out. And since COVID causes our lungs to leak fluid, you want our lungs to be as efficient as possible. And God's given us a beautiful escalator system to take debris and damaged lungs out of our lungs. Now smoking paralyzes that, and each cigarette you have paralyzes that mucociliary transport system for up to 4 hours. So if you have 20 cigarettes in a day, your lungs just don't work as before, and you're not going to oxygenate your blood as before. Not to mention the fact that with cigarettes, you often, the chemicals inside cigarettes, of course, carbon monoxide, bind to hemoglobin, which is the molecule in our blood that carries oxygen about 200 times more than oxygen. So it's very difficult for oxygen to bind to the hemoglobin. So we run around in a permanent state of hypoxia. I think it's a brilliant idea that for the run-up over here, that the cigarettes have, are not easy to be bought. Unfortunately, there's the other issue as well that there is black market cigarettes as well, but that's another story. That's not our agenda here today.
Absolutely, and in fact, we'll leave it there at least for now. Thanks very much for your time. Certainly appreciate your advice and your insights as, of course, South Africans, for the first time really ever, sort of get into an environment where they have to deal with the winter chills during a pandemic.